Guys, let's start. Today we'll have a rather important lecture because, on the one hand, I should tell you about some safety measures from the point of view of the information you get. On the other hand, I shouldn't hurt anyone's interests, not to stop the progress of anyone's motivations. So I should find the golden mean. On the one hand, I should say that a certain surplus of the information is harmful, as well as the lack of information. At the same time, if you don't look for something new, you won't evolve too. So it's necessary to find a middle ground here. I'll give you one example. Do you remember yesterday we talked about one man who studied the path of yoga? He began to some extent to control his energy, his emotions that come to him as different passions. And some emotions get the best of him, and we jokingly called this situation like when a person comes and starts hitting against the refrigerator. There is a fridge and there is a passion which is in the fridge. And he comes up to the handle of the fridge. On the one hand, he wants to take the handle, and on the other hand, he is reluctant to do it. Do you get what I mean? Do you understand that sometimes, for example, the appetite of a person is more than he needs even if he realizes it? But nevertheless, he just eats, he can't stop. Do you admit? Do you get what I mean? He can't stop even when his mind understands everything. So, what is the problem of this person at this level of development? What do you think? The surplus of energy. So, let's list it. The surplus of energy on the one hand, maybe a hole. Where is the hole? In the chakra. In the chakra, what chakra? The Manipura. The Manipura, yes, it is responsible for the amount. Are there any other opinions why a person can behave so? Parasites, so larvas, dependence. So there is... The energy can't rise higher through the channels. He has nothing else to do. Well, let's focus on what we have, otherwise we will go very far. So, you've mentioned the will is weak. And why did it become weak? It was normal and then suddenly became weak? What is the reason? Maybe it's connected with tapas. Okay, well, thank you for understanding. So, we've discussed that the person who suddenly begins to eat more has an energetic problem, which leads him to rash acts. On the one hand, for someone, this example may not be obvious, but we can draw a parallel between it and the knowledge accumulation by a person. When a person can't stop reading or visiting some events, just as he feeds his belly with food, he feeds his Manipura Chakra, because Manipura Chakra, which is responsible for the need for food, is also responsible for certain intellectual requirements of a person. And it happens very often when a person can't realize what he puts in himself. He puts in himself everything. Such people become very smart. These people can talk a lot, but they always talk on different topics, and there is just no sense in the things that such a person says. And not a long time ago, probably for the last 3 or 4 years, I've been observing such a person. One of my friends decided to promote healthy eating for some reason. But I understood that it was connected with the Manipura. I warned my friend, be careful, you may have problems, but you know how yogis can be brave, they just say, how we will solve all the problems. And he promoted healthy eating for some time. And on the one hand, everything he said was correct. He spoke about cleansing of the organism and healthy eating, and all that was fine and cool, but of course people who watch this lecture already have this problem. So they had problems with food. And, of course, it was sick people who were concentrating on him. What do you think, what processes started to happen inside this man? He got sick because of the thing for which he treated others. He couldn't believe it, but it happened to him. The farther in, the deeper. So then his Manipura activated and he began to fight with his appetite. So he had healthy animal appetite. He ate when he needed and when he didn't need. And then he ate mostly what he shouldn't and when he shouldn't do it. So he completely turned around 180 degrees, but it's not the most curious thing that he put in himself improper things which he told others not to eat. So he began to eat it. The farther in, the deeper. As he does yoga, he began to direct his uncontrolled Manipura towards the knowledge. A library had already been formed in his house. It contained any literature about self-improvement. He read everything. So he put in himself all that referred somehow to the system of self-improvement. Yes, of course, all these books were thematic. This doesn't mean that the entire bookstore of esoteric literature moved to his house, no, but he could read 5 books about almost the same thing simultaneously. There were 5 books on his table at home and he could read them at the same time. It's the same phenomena of the Manipura Chakra. What do you think? What happens if a man begins to thrust the knowledge into himself? Do you think what will happen? What can you suggest? The overload of information, inadequate perception. It's necessary to get the knowledge and then to apply it practically and not to collect and collect all the time. So he even found excuses for the fact that he read a lot. He was trying to find the answer to his question connected with his food problem, and he put in himself whatever he could. If there was only one such person, unfortunately no. This happens systematically and these guys appear from time to time. But the most important thing, as you said it correctly, of course, is the fact that if you put the food into your stomach without stopping and not giving it enough time to digest, poisoning will happen sooner or later. So if you take even a good product but you eat it not at the right time and not the amount that you need, you'll poison yourself sooner or later. Can you admit it? Exactly the same happens with information. The more information you thrust into yourself without realizing it, the worse it will be for you. Because different thoughts began to come to this man. For example, does he really need yoga? Because different books say different things. And the more such information came to a person, the more doubts appeared in him. He began to doubt if he really had to do it. I'm not joking. I say it in all seriousness. And if you remember, this is the man who taught people to eat healthy. He even gave up on the necessity of his activity. It's not necessary. He got doubts in everything he could. Do you know to what chakra do the doubts refer? Yes, Svadhisthana chakra. So he got from the Manipura even lower, and unfortunately, such examples are rather common. I can draw an analogy. It may be not quite beautiful, but in fact it reflects what really is happening with the information. More precisely, first, before I'll draw this analogy, I'll ask you a question. Probably in your life you have experienced the periods when you have nothing to do and so you turned on the TV and were watching it for 3, 4 or 5 hours. Did you do it at least once in your life? Do you remember the state in which you sat down in front of the TV and the state after watching it? Or you go to the cinema and you are sitting there like zombies. For example, 100 people are sitting there, so 100 zombies are looking at the screen and they are loaded with the same images. So one person came into the cinema and a very different person came out. Have you ever noticed it? Do you understand? As for the TV, I think you have experienced it. If you sit in front of the TV for a few hours, everything will change in you. Your world outlook just will change, you see? Moreover, it doesn't matter what you watch. This is the system of loading you with the information. As for the example which I was trying to convey, If you have ever faced the problems of the physical body, for example, a person has lost the blood out of the body for some reason, or he has his blood cleansed. I mean, for example, poisoning. When a person is on a drip, do you get what I mean? So, this is a device through which you get a solution through a thin tube. The solutions can be different, it doesn't matter if it's a medicine or just a saline. But nevertheless, the information you load in yourself can be compared with the drop bottle. The only problem is that you don't even know the people who pour the solution in the drop bottle. They have just prepared something and you give them your hand and they pour it in you. One poured something in you from one book, another one poured from another book, the third one from the third book. And all this gets in you directly through the vein. What do you think how you feel after some time, even if you haven't even realized what the first one poured in you? And you continue pouring and pouring something in yourself. Do you think it's possible that this person is unlikely to be healthy? Most likely he will have some problems. That's why there is a danger of information poisoning, and it's not a fairy tale. I'll give you another example. Once, some time ago, we gave one seminar at a Buddhist place. We just rented their facilities because they had good infrastructure. There were large halls and we needed such large halls. And accidentally, there I met people whom I knew, I don't know, probably, well, many years ago, when I was a young man and looked for different teachers. Among other things, I was interested in Buddhism. And there I met some guys who were my associates at that stage of development. Probably 17 years have passed, so I haven't seen these people about 17 years. There were 2 or 3 men there. After talking to them, I realized that they had changed for these 17 years. So their outlook of fanatical Buddhists remained the same. They don't almost evolve. Although they lived there for 17 years adhering to certain principles, perhaps certain dogmas. But unfortunately, there was no progress.
Но, к сожалению, развития тоже не было.
On the one hand, if you become a fanatic of one teaching, don't evolve, don't constantly get any new knowledge and thoughts, you will have stagnation. On the other hand, if you overfill yourself with knowledge or information, you will have poisoning. That's why it's important to find a middle ground. So, you shouldn't sit in the desert, you won't evolve, but if you pour in yourself everything that your mind considers as right, you will have poisoning 100%. You will have doubts, and there's a chance that after a while, such a person will leave the path of self-development and will be very far from it. Actually, this is the topic I would like to discuss with you today. Do you have any questions, comments, additions? Maybe someone disagrees with something. I'll be glad to listen alternative points of view. As for the project, there are usually several participants. How did it influence them? Well, Vasily, you're getting to the root of the problem as usual. Well, relatively normal. Everyone went through it in their own way. Someone had enough energy to transform it. Someone doesn't have enough energy? Not really. The fact is that other participants have to deal with other issues in their social life because of their lifestyle and karma and their work. So they do something else to make a living. That's why they can't bury themselves in books, for example. A person I spoke about had such a good karma so that he doesn't need to work, so to say. He can spend 24 hours a day on self-development. Everything is alright in his life. It happens sometime. That's why he had this thing. So it happens. May it happen that entities or larvas choose a person intentionally? For example, there are 4 persons who give lectures. You said yourself the entities hunted yogis. The more energy, the more interest. So it sees, for example, that a person is bright and serene, and it takes the calm of these entities, which had to move their associate of this man. So it takes the part. It's not exactly true, Vasily. In this case, larva is not a problem. Just imagine now there are two the same Andres Weber next to me. But one of them, well, he's just from the Journal of Man's Fashion. He is clean-shaven, handsome, muscular, apparently after a weight room. He's smiling. He has a beautiful smile, whitened teeth, so everything is fine. The next one is me, for example. It's a medium variant, and the other one is just from the cave. So he hadn't cut his cave for 30 years probably, and you can guess what teeth he has. Just the holes. Well, who fixes the teeth in the caves? It's not like Yogis. That's why he looks disgusting. And so there is one and the same lecture, they are giving the same information almost word by word. But there are three different images. What do you think? Who will have more hits? You will. No. Many times I observed the situation when handsome, prominent guys begin to lead something. They do it for a year, 2 or 3 years max. Then they have big problems and don't do yoga at all any longer, or begin go deeper in philosophy, or something else. Well, it doesn't matter, it's their way, but people who get accustomed to certain standards will choose what is pleasant for them. One handsome guy who will sit and literally shine will cause more interest of the audience. More people will watch at him. And if he is such a handsome, prominent man, whose attention will he draw? Women. And what role do you will have the woman who will choose that one who is more handsome? It will be standard? No, it won't be standard. A standard normal woman is adequate. There is nothing wrong with her brain. I mean non-standard modern woman who is a product of modern civilization. All women are good, as I was said yesterday. Think of it. Yesterday I wanted to say the phrase. Most of the audience is young and beautiful ladies. I couldn't even finish the phrase. Who will have to bear children? I was immediately interrupted and said, what about the others? So they perceive it so keenly that they didn't even allow me to finish, just imagine it. I was just surprised. Actually, this handsome guy doesn't have a chance. In fact, it's true, believe me. I've seen a lot of examples when handsome guys stopped evolving because they attracted the attention of inadequate people. The more inadequate people will concentrate on a person, the more inadequate he will become. That's a fact. And the third person, who will look disgusting, will have the other problems. Of course, he will draw the attention only of the connoisseurs. They will know well that there's no need to look at their appearance. It's important to pay attention to what a person says, how he expresses his thoughts. But very few people will watch at him, and probably he will live the longest. You shouldn't laugh. So it is. What do you think? Why the advanced yogis don't present themselves in any way? Many people think, I'll go to India, to the yoga capital Rishikesh. Well, I recommend you once to take a trip to the capital of yoga Rishikesh and see what it is. Go to the ashrams which will provide different services there. You will be surprised, because adequate yogis, adequate teachers are not interested in a large number of students. Any student is just a problem for the teacher, any student. Because the problems with the head of the student, so-called the cockroaches in his head, about what I tried to tell you yesterday, you can't even believe what happens to any person. So until he, like a puppy, lives with his passions, running back and forth from his passions until his energy is alright, so it is brought out, he is regularly moved, everything is fine with his head. He is adequate, everything is alright, but every time he a little bit turns off the tap of his passions and begins to accumulate energy, The cockroaches in his head put their whiskers out of his ears and start wiggling with their whiskers. And the person, to put it mildly, begins to say, "Don't show strange things sometimes, but it's fact. There's such a problem." Why did I bring up such topic today? On the one hand, it's well known, but if you intend to follow the path of self-development, it will be better if you hear certain safety rules. They are: if you are going to study something, for example, one teaching, no matter what, try to sift a question to the bottom. And I'll quote the words of Alexei Trulebov. He is a Russian patriot who promoted the idea of the concept of sanity. What is sanity? There is your opinion. Your mind thinks that something is probably right. Before you focus on studying something entirely, you should find some scriptures that confirm your thoughts, or it will be even better if you find people who experienced it firsthand. So, they have already tried to apply this teaching, and you can see what kind of results these people have achieved. Is the logic clear? That's it wouldn't happen to you that you open the book and see the poems about self-improvement written there. It inspired you so much that you think that it's the most wonderful and valuable thing. But once again, it's always important to confirm something by the example of others. It's not difficult to do. Fortunately, many different systems of self-improvement are available today, and they are not limited almost without exception. Now, it happens extremely rarely when someone is limited in something. Unfortunately, there are also such examples. Therefore, it's not difficult to find some followers of any teaching, people who are engaged in it for 5 or 10 years. Just talk with this person not about how much he was amplified, how to speak properly, but about this person's life, about the worldview of this person, what a person he is. Why? Because if a person became a part of some group of people where they just repeat the same things, read books 20 times, he will express his thoughts within the conception which he adheres to. But if you talk about life after listening to the person and the way he speaks about life, you will understand whether you want it or not. So it's very easy to become a zombie. If you repeat one and the same thing, you will accept this worldview. And as for the life, it just puts everything in its place. Well, there is the second thing. If you can find it, try to seek confirmation in the scriptures which this or that group of people declares. I'll repeat your question into the microphone. You said it's called Akhori. Allegedly, there is a sect called Akhori. Its representatives meditate on feces, on dead animals, or on something else that decays. It's better to say on something is not creative. And allegedly, they have some enlightened people. Thankfully, I didn't meet this sect. I didn't even have to make a choice at that time when I was looking for the path. There was not such things in Russia. I don't think it will be widespread. It's a kind of an oddity, a perversion. Why? Because even if you find more or less ancient scriptures, there is something similar in Buddhism. One kind of meditation has some overlaps. Yes, there are no feces there, pardon the expression, but they concentrate on the death as such. So they concentrate on what a human life can come to. And when I communicated with the modern followers of this movement, I realized that not everything is bright and wonderful there. And accordingly, if you concentrate on some things that have a specific energy, it's unlikely that everything will be all right with your head. But there are people for whom it's probably necessary. To be honest, I would never condemn whatever they do. I don't care if they're even standing on their head and trying to eat something. It's their choice. Yesterday, I talked to one young man. The conversation turned to the subject of children, and he made the statement that the children of today's generation have plenty of chances to degrade. They have a lot of chances to come down, to degrade, to put it shortly. I told him that it's not a problem, because if you want to do yoga, sometimes you have to come down to a certain level from where you can start. because until you have known a certain bottom in yourself, the progress may stop quickly. There's even a very good metaphor. There's no saint without a past, no sinner without a future. Actually, there is a deep meaning in this phrase, though perhaps not everyone understood what it's about. So, to become a saint, a person had to generate different experience. He had to try everything, but only after that, starting from the negative, he became positive. And at the same time, how bad the man was, how many murders he committed, or something else, he can evolve anyway. I know people who professionally killed other people. They killed a lot of people, just a lot of them. Nevertheless, at a certain stage, even such people are able to develop. Yes, they are developing in their own way, but nevertheless, they are able to develop. No problem. Well, they are trying to develop at least. Yes, they can't do hatha yoga. The man who kills has very big problems with his legs. Their legs become concrete. They hardly can do yoga, but nevertheless they can do spiritual research, so there's no problem. Therefore, in this case, if you want to check by your own experience what will happen to you when you will concentrate on physics, try to do an experiment and see what will happen. Perhaps this way will be suitable for you. But when you drain to the least, perhaps you will progress very much. Why do I say so? The fact is that when Shakyamuni Buddha was also looking for the way to enlightened living, he had a period about 7 years when he literally survived. All the nonsense he was recommended, he tried to experience. There was a period when he and his friends made such a vow in the forest. I'll sit under the tree and won't leave this place until the enlightenment. I'll eat and drink only what will fall from the sky. So, if it rained, they drank this water. If, excuse me, the birds defecated, they found some seeds in their feces. They ate these seeds, but they didn't move. So, he almost came to death. Moreover, there are more rigid descriptions. Probably it will sound strangely for a Russian man. In India, cow droppings are still considered to be a simple place of food. Have you ever faced such a theory? It's widespread among Krishnaites, and in general, from the point of view of Ayurveda, it's meaningful. Moreover, it makes sense not from the point of view of Ayurveda. In my childhood, my father told me one Cossack story. I don't mean the Kazakhs in Kazakhstan, I mean the Cossacks who live in the North Caucasus. So, he told me a story, or rather, not a story. So, in general, once it happened that my friends and I had eaten too much honey, so we literally had a stomachache. Accordingly, the father came and said, "Well, do you have any problems?" I said, "Yes." He said, "If you have more problems, you will be given cow droppings." I was surprised. "What? Is it to put into the mouth?" He smiled and said, "When things get too tough, you will eat anything." So, the things don't get too tough, your health will improve. But it's a fact. The Cossacks had a tradition, if a person ate too much honey, he was recovered by cow droppings. And how do we know that? Few people know that in the North Caucasus, after the revolution, starvation happened 2 times, when there was no food at all. People really practiced cannibalism there. And it was in Russia, in the North Caucasus, where the Cossacks live, in the Don region, so from the Don almost to the mountains. So, the communists took all the products. That was the so-called surplus appropriation system, when the commissars came and went through plantation and poked them with bayonets. The peasants buried some wheat there, and where they found some wheat, they shot all the family demonstratively in the street. and then collected all the grain. And they took everything. So, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, try to imagine how peasants lived at that time. They harvested and lived the rest of the year due to this harvest. When the commissars came and took everything, when nothing was left, well, you see, when the neighboring family was shot, all the rest gave everything they had out of harm's way, saying, "Get lost, devils," and they called them as they called. It's a fact, and there were such starvations because they took everything in 20s and 30s. There was nothing to eat. And when the wild bees gathered the first honey, people climbed the forest trees, found the honey, and ate it to such extent that they were almost close to death. And so they were given cow droppings to recover. Okay, we wandered from the subject a lot. In general, the fact is that in Ayurveda, cow droppings are really considered to be super blissful food. So, there's such a point of view that Shakyamuni Buddha had a period in his life when he ate only cow droppings. How is it called? The word droppings is bad. How is it called when we speak about cows? Yes, the dung. What? A flat cake? What an awesome word. So, he ate only these things. Thus, he tried to come to godness. But where did he come? He came literally almost to the death. The dawn didn't help, nothing helped. And in the end, from the point of view of certain people, he had to drown in the river. He washed ashore and one girl rescued him. The girl after whom people in India named their children was called Sujata. It's a very famous name. It is the girl who showed compassion, and she just walked and grazed some animals. I don't know, either cows or goats, and she saw a huge stack of bones on the shore. Shakyamuni Buddha was incredibly tall, and he was almost like a giant. So, such a huge skeleton laying on the shore. He was dying, and she showed compassion, abandoned her cows, and decided to feed him. She went home, took rice milk, and began to feed him. In general, she slowly nursed him back to health. So now in India, near Bodh Gaya, there is Sujata Stupa, which is 3 or 4 times more than stupas which are built in honor of Shakyamuni Buddha. So, stupas of Shakyamuni Buddha are not large at all. Of course, I exaggerate, but they are certainly of many meters. But Sujata Stupa is twice higher for sure, and respectively they are wider 3 times. So you see how they remember the girl. Do you understand what people like? The things which Buddha said are too enlightened. It's not clear, but Sujata fed the Buddha. She did a specific thing. So she is still praised. So, friends, it's hard to say how they will practice. If someone needs it, let them do it. It's their choice. Moreover, it's useful for everyone else. If a person begins to do some stupid things, believe me, it's useful for the viewers who will accumulate the experience where these stupid things lead. Perhaps this person is actually a bodhisattva. He takes something upon himself so that others don't do it. Do you understand the logic? Probably not everyone, because the term bodhisattva is not entirely clear. Bodhisattvas are the people who, roughly speaking, take upon themselves karma, so they gather it. Yes, we can say so. They gather karma. It doesn't always look beautiful, and very often people don't understand why they do it. But if such gathering of karma helps someone to realize certain things, no problem. So, friends, as for the teachings and their variety and how people put it in themselves, do you have any questions, additions, or comments? The fact is that the larvas and, as you call it, subtle entities that you have created, it's the same thing. But when you create a passion and feed it with your energy, at a certain stage, this passion will become a completely individual entity. So, you have created it. If you, for example, died for some reason, the larva could jump on someone else and parasitize on this person. That's the problem. I'll give you an example. Have you heard the concept scapegoat? Do you know what it means? What? In Israel? Well, at that time it wasn't called Israel. So, in the Middle East there were the rituals. It's amazing that now in Russia we can face similar rituals. I actually saw it how. Well, no matter. In general, people are still trying to transfer their problems to the animals with the help of certain magic techniques. And in particular, as for the scapegoat, it's a historical fact. They took the goat, a real goat, and if you don't know, Israel is the country surrounded by the desert almost from all sides. They took a goat to the desert, drove a spike there so that the goat couldn't escape, and left it there. But they made a special ritual. They took a sick person and gathered all the energy from that sick person by means of spells, transferred it to the goat, and then the goat was left in the desert. There's a description where it's said that a goat didn't just die. His body began to rot very slowly. If, for example, a normal goat is destined to die, he pops off and that's all. And these were not just dying. They were dying in terrible pain, and the man who participated in the ritual received a relief. Either a disease has gone or something else happened. This is classic black magic, and this is done even now. Why can't we transfer something on someone else? What will happen to a person from whom something was taken away in his or her future life? It's logical, right? To my great regret, this person will die with all the attributes he wished, for example, to the god. It's a reality. And at a certain stage, these larvas become virtually a separate entity, that is, individuality, which already begins to parasitize on others. If you had such vision, you would be horrified how modern people look like on subtle level. Everyone has parasites in the aura. Someone has less, someone more, but an addicted person looks terrible. Because what is an addicted person? Have you ever faced drug addicts? How is it better to explain it? You know that a drug addict is ready to do anything to get the drug. That's not a joke. They can steal something or kill someone. Okay, as for killing, they are afraid of it more often. But they are ready, I assure you. So he has such an addiction, so he is ready to commit any crime. It's the same thing with alcoholics. Now there are more alcoholics than drug addicts. So probably you know that we can expect anything from a drunk person. Jnana explained it well in his lecture. If someone got drunk, immediately call the ambulance, the police. There's a fool there, he will get fired. Everyone knows it's better to call in advance. Now something will happen. This is not a joke. People who intoxicate themselves under the effect of certain energies go crazy and do absurd things. Jnana said a great thing. The rules in all countries where alcoholism is widespread are very strange. Everyone knows that alcohol brings a tremendous amount of economic problems. There are a lot of victims on the road accidents because of alcohol. There are a lot of people sitting in prison because of alcohol. There are a lot of divorces and abandoned children. All this is because of alcohol. It all falls on the shoulders of the state. On the one hand, someone has calculated that for every ruble earned by the state through the sale of alcohol, the state incurs losses of 6 rubles. Think about it. 1 to 6, and someone supports it. It's very strange. Everyone knows that this drink causes too many problems, but someone is interested in promoting this drink among population. The question is, who are these people? Who said the sparrows? How is that relevant? Believe me, in my life, in my youth, I watched people who made Russia drunk. The whole trains brought alcohol to Russia, not even the vegans. Trains. A train of 20 wagons was completely full of alcohol. It was brought to Russia in the early 90s, and all the alcohol just was gone immediately. So it was in great demand. I knew the people who did it, and they even did it under the auspices of sports. There was so-called Independent Sports Federation. They made an agreement with Yeltsin so they could bring alcohol to Russia and sell it without excise tax. In general, there were 90% Russian guys who were all killed in the next 2 years. There were about 35 firms who were engaged in it. So all of them except 2 were killed. So alcoholics do absurd things that will make them suffer. As they say, you're a fool, later you'll be sorry. They just do something being out of control. Do you think this is the person who does it? No, this is the parasite who has settled him and pulls the strings. So the person, like a zombie, just goes and performs something, but of course he will be that one who will suffer later. Is the same thing with the food? Yes, it's the same thing. Oh no, wait a minute. There are far few people in the prison because of food. They get in the accidents far less. I didn't mean it. Is it also an addiction? Yes, of course. Work with Manipura Chakra, only because you've made a surplus of energy in the Manipura Chakra. Let's discuss female Manipura when a woman has problems with food. A woman cooks tasty food, satisfying the passion, and the man gets up from the table, stroking his Manipura Chakra. All they stroke it, as they feel the excess of energy there. Or maybe they smooth over the vortex there and say, "Oh," and then some tirades, right? The woman hears all this and gets the energy to the same chakra where a man throws it out. And then this woman will have problems. I have such a problem, and you are not the only one. I can assure you. Ladies, raise your hands honestly who have had problems with Manipura Chakra when you ate more than you needed. Please raise your hands higher in order to calm the girl, because she confessed and probably she thinks that she's the only one. I assure you, if I say how many men suffer from this chakra, you shouldn't laugh. Well, do you mean it's better to cook tasteless food? You have to perform the duties. If your husband says, "I want to eat," if you cook something very austere, he will hardly eat it. In general, the question is what to do. If you don't cook, most likely you will have to change your sexual unit, because your beloved husband, whom you loved some years ago, just won't eat it. We give safety rules to help the yoga teacher to overcome the problems he will have the next 2 or 3 years. So, one has become a yoga teacher. He has a diploma, he is going to teach. Nowhere anyone talks about the problems that the person will face. At the Institute of Physical Education, they teach management how to sell yoga in your region or how to create yoga club. Have you seen a lot of examples when the beginner created his own yoga studio? In 10 years, yes, probably they will create it, if they have enough potential, but the lectures of the vast majority of the teachers are just about nothing. You know, I can knock my own head chakra and say, we have the best yoga school, but it's a fact. Okay, you know, there is a very good criterion to check my, as you say, proud on other words. After 10 years, remember this strange conversation when Veva said that they had made the best system of education of yoga that is available, not only in Russia, but in the world. This is not a joke, guys. I studied a lot in India, and I know what I'm saying. Look, after 10 years, how many yoga teachers who finished our course will remain afloat. I assure you, it will be 10 times more than in any other school, because we teach how to survive. Nobody speaks about it on the courses. However much you explain people how to prevent yoga injuries, believe me, it's all in vain. What people come to yoga classes? You come up to him and say, you shouldn't do so. On the next yoga class, once again, you shouldn't do so. He heard and nodded. Then he comes the third time and does the same thing. For example, A learning channel show gives mostly your favorite joint exercises, no problem. And it's in our club. Even when we hold Vipassana during 10 days, there are 10 different Hatha Yoga classes, and all this is within the club and there are no contradictions. All different classes are necessary, believe me. All of you shouldn't do only things that I give. You all have different physiology. And life equalizes everything very well. Different teachers give different classes, and in the end, it creates harmony. By the way, this is the advantage of our club. We have no fixed dogma about what the teacher must give during his class. This is a huge advantage. So, what is the criterion between what you should read or consume and where it will be overkill? I can't tell you how many books you should read a month, but I'll give you another example which I know helps everyone, especially yoga teachers. So, if you are a teacher, you give regular classes, you won't have even much time to read new literature. You will give knowledge and then recover. Give knowledge and then recover. And in this case, you will never overload yourself. That will lead to the loss of your path at all. And how will we develop? Wait, please. I meant the case when you as a teacher will constantly practice the things you study. The word recovery, which I said, means that you will always experience and practice the things that you have studied and recommend to others. You will always have to practice. Did I explain it clearly? So, the teacher has a certain golden mean. If he holds regular classes, he will always have to work on himself. He will be asked questions. The students who will ask him questions on this or that subject will come to him according to his karma. When he returns home, he surely will search for the information on this subject on the internet and check whether he answered correctly or not. An ordinary person who can become a philosopher will have no path in yoga. It will be like walking in a circle. The set of different concepts, different philosophical doctrines, which unfortunately a person will have no time to understand for all his life. On the one hand, probably yes. But how will you learn by experience? For example, when you are said that there are yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. You analyze, for example, pratyahara. In a nutshell, it means to throw the TV set out of the house. Well, or to cut the internet cable. The internet is cut off, it means pratyahara. I am not kidding. Pratyahara is the elimination of any information flow that comes to you, and a yogi must do it. Will you be able to throw the TV set out? Well, let's say you got rid of the TV, and what about the internet? And how can we develop, as you said correctly, without our precious internet? So it turns out that you will be able to understand it in theory, but in fact it will be very difficult to apply it. And we are talking about gradual development. I'm not even talking about dhyana and samadhi. It's just hardcore. So you will have to leave the society and devote all your life only to self-discovery if you try to reach samadhi. It's also unreal. It turns out you will have some knowledge which will be only the theory. You as a social person will never apply it. The life of yoga teacher is much cooler. Now when I am answering your question, the lady will understand me. I'll give you one example. How many of you are yoga teachers who taught or teaches people yoga in some clubs or studios? Raise your hands, that would be clear. How will you understand me? Well, thank you. Now, think about it. How many yoga classes can you give for 10 years? I never counted, but I imagine that a lot. If you put yoga mats very closely, 32 people can come to our yoga club and no more. Only 32 mats can be put on the floor. It's the maximum. For 10 years, it was only 2 times when more than 32 people came to our club. Although there are 100 or 200 people who came from time to time to our club in Moscow. Imagine, could 200 people come to our club at the same time? They didn't come. Maximum 32 people came, and usually it was 25 or 27 people. That was just comfortable. Do you think this is an accident? Moreover, we don't work on an appointment basis. We just have comic filter. Only the people who are destined to get to their yoga class come. So, I'm trying to explain to you that the number of people is regulated by higher powers. Maybe you won't believe it, but it's true. So, there is a certain filter that says that you're destined to get to your class today, and for example, you won't be there. And only people who need it usually come. In this case, this example just shows that you can assume that I'm telling the truth. And there are certain instances which are monitoring your development as a yoga teacher in a particular yoga club. And you'll get exactly such a lot that you need. If today here we have yoga teachers who have been already teaching at least 4 or 5 years, you know, during the first or sometimes second year of teaching, different crazy people with questions come to you. Everyone faces it. Strange people come and ask you strange questions. In the first year, you will be like a fighter on your mat, and then strange people just will stop coming. A lot of people noticed it. That is exactly the same in military service. All the oddities say they will manifest or not manifest during the first or second year. Therefore, in this case, there is the balance. Now, I'll explain you why I'm telling you it for so long. When you said what amount of knowledge is necessary to obtain, apply and give, it will be also regulated not by you, not by your mind. You will face only the books that are necessary for your development. The mind certainly has a subjective assessment, if I need it or not. Now, if you teach, then surely you will have people with such questions answering which you will be interested to understand these things for yourself too. Have I explained it clearly? For example, a person comes to you and asks what is Pratyahara. You start remembering what you heard about it. Throw out the TV set. You forgot about the TV and said to throw out the microwave, and the man went to throw out the microwave. I'm kidding. Actually, this is not a joke. Even when a person was properly trained as a yoga teacher, people listen to one thing and associate it with another one and draw their own conclusions. I noticed it many times. So, when you return home, you will look for the meaning of the word Pratyahara. And thus you will educate yourself. But the people that will come to you will ask you only the questions that are the most relevant for you. This is not a joke. You will be never asked questions in which you are just an expert. Here the girl asked, "Do you really have the best yoga teacher training course?" I beat my chest and say, "No doubt." It's too easy to answer, but according to the karma, the girl should ask tough questions that would help me to develop. And it actually happens so. It turns out that if you understand that the whole world around you is interested in your development, you'll get only those people in front of you which will help you to develop. You'll still naively think that you are a yoga teacher, they come to you to do yoga, you tell them some great theories, but in fact it is so. At the next stage, after about 10 years, if you develop your energy and talk about not only how to prevent injuries on the mat, you will have the ability to transmit knowledge. You will learn how to separate the knowledge that is in your mind and the knowledge that is moving through you like a flow. There are some teachers here who noticed such a strange thing. You start answering the question of your student and say something that makes you even surprised, but you know it's true. Did it happen? Everyone who felt it, raise your hands. That people would see that I'm not crazy. Great. You admit that it's possible. If you are going to develop it purposefully, turning off your mind, becoming a conductor of knowledge, you will tell a specific person exactly what he or she needs to hear. You see, let's go in further. Now imagine the situation, the lady comes to you and says, "What if it's bad to feed the Manipura of the husband? What to do with such a husband?" And you think with your mind, "If I were a fanatic, I'd say..." I can't even imagine what I could say as a fanatic. If I answered you with the help of my mind and you have implemented it, it would be my karma. Because you asked a question and I motivated you for this act and you have performed this act. I bear the karmic responsibility for what you have done. But it can happen if you really will become a good teacher.
Then the flow will pass through you. And this is the most valuable thing when you educate people. I'll still answer a question about such a husband. If you're a yoga teacher, you'll need the man nearby to a certain stage. So it's better to let him be as he is. If you even have no husband, at least you should have a reliable friend. Sometimes you can get carried away because of the energy, and it's very, very difficult to overcome it. If you're alone, you're absolutely right. In order not to feed larvas, I put it in my own words. Of course, the yoga teacher will share his or her energy and will also practice, but surely there will be such situations when you will have no time and opportunity to deal with your energy. And then you'll need a partner to convert this energy. So you need such a reliable partner, preferably at a working distance. But again, understand me, I can't advise it for everyone. This girl has a rather active way of life in the city. She is not a different person. She does a lot of things, and I imagine how many lovers will come to her. That's why I answered her in such a way. Probably someone doesn't need it at all. I know a very good yoga teacher who can't stand the man. For her, the man is like, so she immediately starts convulsing. Everything is okay in her life. So she lives, teaches, and she doesn't need any man. I don't understand her. And she lives happily. She doesn't need it at all. She has already gained the whole experience that she needed. She knows what the husband who is constantly nearby means. She doesn't need it anymore. It's all right. The experience has been gained. So let me answer the first question, then the second one. I have a relatively recent example. I have one friend. He's a Vaishnava, very active and well-known person. But he's a Vaishnava and promotes his theories. We communicate in one social network. He respects me and asks me some questions from time to time. And once he wrote such a question, Andrei, are there any asanas for gallstones? Knowing how they live, how much they eat, the prasad, I'm writing to him. What's done cannot be undone. You should have eaten less. When they overeat, they just destroy their body, in fact, and they overeat constantly. I'll tell you a story about how the life in the ashrams is organized. It is the same thing in the Buddhist monasteries. There's a group of people who are engaged in self-development, most likely. Even if we look at the Christian community or Muslim one, probably we will notice that they may face the same problem. I know exactly that Buddhist and Hindu communities really do it. For example, imagine there is a teacher and there are a number of students who are developing. At a certain stage, problems start coming to them and they can't solve these energetic problems. And a long time ago, they began to apply the following remedy. They make a feast about once a month. They call it prasad, though they just speak out. They prepare a lot of food, put all these things to the altar first, read the mantras and the scriptures for some days, so they accumulate the energy in order to satisfy the larva that is really just pressing on them very much. And this overeating is practiced almost everywhere. Vaishnavas are not the inventors of prasad. This is the classical system of taking energy from the population, and they practice it. Therefore, in this case, this topic is very important. If you can really make the prasad from food, probably here you have some strange guys sitting and reading mantra Om before the meal. You must have seen them. So it's an attempt to change the energy of this food, turning it into the prasad. That's where the tradition has begun. But the only problem is what amount of food you will put in your Manipura. What will happen to your internal organs that will constantly run wrecked? Do you think you will be healthier? Nothing of the sort. If you're overeating, you will live less, it's a fact. So it's very dangerous to overeat, not because I told you a strange phrase, you will live less. Do you think that the life on this blue planet in samsara is such a great value? No, you will just do less for this world. So, if you live less, you will help less for the people that would come to you, because the development of the teacher happens gradually. While you're at a certain level, only people of the same level of development can come to you and understand you. You will be able to convey some information only to these people. At this next stage, absolutely different people will come to you. If you will evolve, people who heard you about 5 or 10 years ago will never come to you. You will just speak another language. So, this gradual system is very large, and the people who can come to you in your life are chemically connected with you. So, what does it mean? If you are at the level of the Manipura Chakra all your life, you will meet only those who are chemically connected with you, who are also at the level of Manipura. People who are at the level of the Anahata look at you and think, oh, he's a philosopher. What can we expect of him? Or on the contrary, his card chakra isn't opened, I don't like him, and so on. At every level, you will have completely different people, and in these worlds, it's very important to find those people who are chemically connected with you. Why is it important? I won't go into details. These are, roughly speaking, those doubts that you have to realize in your incarnation. If you don't realize everything in this life, you will have to reincarnate to repeat the year. Well, in short, you will have a second examination, and again you'll have a hard time in this world. Again, you'll get the human body, and again you'll grow in the demonic society. You'll be fed with meat. They will do, you know whom they will do of you. And only then probably you'll become a teacher, and probably then these people will come to you if you raise your level. But maybe you won't raise your level and will have to repeat it. And there's little of interest in it. Just a minute, we have the second question. You have the right attitude. It's right to humble the pride, because every person at some stage will bump into his or her pride. It's a disease that few people overcome, but the things the guy said are very important. Did you understand what he's talking about? So all his actions, even reading a book, he consecrates to someone. It's not for himself. He does it not for his ego. He doesn't like it. He offers oblations. The development is impossible without any oblations at all. Let me give you one example. In my youth, when I was looking for some teachers, I discovered a very strange thing. When I went to some ashram or to someone else, I really felt a strong impetus. No matter I liked or didn't like them, if they were doing some system of self-improvement, I gave them all the money I had. I was surprised. Why did I open my purse, leave in some money that was just enough to get home, and give them everything? I was surprised. Understand me, I was adequate. I mean, I perceived myself adequately, but I discovered a strange thing. Then I found out that this is a perfectly novel feature that I always developed in my previous lives. If you get some knowledge, it's important to give something back. Otherwise, you won't assimilate the knowledge. It goes in one ear and out of the other. This is the case when you give nothing for the knowledge. And the system of return or oblations, this quality that you cultivate, is a medicine for an adequate life in the future. This is equal to protecting your path. I saw a lot of people who just stopped in the development because of their pride. So all the people who develop pride won't get knowledge in future. What is the main problem of a man who developed pride? He becomes a teacher, guru, and begins to pontificate. And the man who began to pontificate isn't able to receive anything any longer. This is the main problem. And then the man came to a certain level, for example, became Guruji, that's it. And when a person has a position of return or oblations, maybe he will overcome his pride and go on. Just in this case, he will continue to evolve. What is the question? What's to be done when I understand that it's enough to eat, but the larva says, I want more? Pat on the head and put it to sleep. Are you serious? We even can't see it. But you feel it. Yes, I even dream of something like this. And I think it's a larva. it's really a larva. And it spends the energy and I want more and more. When it's enough, I want to continue very much. What is it? You should gain some experience. This illustrative word of wisdom. A daughter comes to her mother and says, Mom, I love Bob, I want to marry him. Mom looks at her daughter and says, You'll stop to think so. It's a fact. Mother with wisdom knows that Bob is no match for her. It's stupid to begin to build a relationship with Bob now. I'm talking about the word of wisdom. Do you understand? But, fact, in this case, the mother is right. The energy will rise from one chakra to another. Of course, the mother knows nothing about the chakras, but she knows that the daughter will come down, become adequate, and see that she was stupid and could get into troubles. And as for the larva that eats too much, it's the same thing. Overcome it several times and you will be stronger. It's like an addiction with a beloved. It is believed, even that psychologists say, if you refuse your addiction for 21 days, to do it on the 22nd day will be easier and then easier and easier. Will it ever go away? It will go away or it will be transformed. At a certain stage, qualified yogis can negotiate with the larvas. It's impossible to fight forever. Let's assume that a well-known yoga teacher has a large audience. Can you imagine how many larvas come to him? Do you think he will rectify all of them or, for example, struggle, do 100-liter kundala? One woman wrote me, Andrei, I've listened in your lecture. You have recommended passing 100 liters through the body. I said, are you serious? When did I recommend it? Then it turned out that I said that one of my friends passed through her not even 100, maybe 200 liters of water. Yes, there was a suspected case of tuberculosis. At that time, she lived in India and Guruji advised her to drink the barrel full of water. I don't remember, I can clarify. Now she lives far from Russia, but it's impossible to clarify it sometime. In general, you can't struggle endlessly. So, yoga teachers have to look for some tools that will allow to make the allies of the larvas, or to engage in mental dialogue with them and to explain the meaningless of what they do. If it haunts someone when it evolves to a biological creature, someone else will do the same thing with it. Actually, they clearly understand it. If the larva is smart, it will understand and just then go away at all. I see we can't affect it. Why can't you affect it? You always have a choice. What a choice if there are too many larvas? Stop just a moment. You are the only one who have created your larvas. For example, there are some people. Why will one of them have a larva while the other will not? He just created it. Will the larva come to a person who doesn't have it? If a teacher speaks and a lot of people listen to him, he shares love and good. Love and good? I didn't say this. You understood incorrectly. Love is the step where you may stop to evolve, and good is also a step where you may stop. If you think you need to do good, you are wrong. But I don't say that you need to do evil. I'm talking about that you need to treat good and evil equally. They are two independent things that you have nearby. If you'll hog the blanket of good, believe me, you will automatically have the antagonism to the evil. So evil will come to you and you won't feel happy, to put it mildly. If you have a short question, please formulate it and I'll answer. Otherwise, we will review your concepts for a very long time. We have a little different views. Yes, it's possible if you had good potential in the past. For example, you were a great guru in your past life. In this life, you find even a shred of knowledge about, for example, self-improvement techniques, and using the techniques, you develop your energy. Then the energy will change your consciousness so that you can begin to recall the knowledge that you knew in your past lives. Therefore, some brilliant teachers appeared. They didn't study anywhere, but had great potential that they shared with people. I don't assess students at all. We even don't have any entrance exams. I used to trust certain forces that guides people. Yeah, we'll hardly enroll crazy people. We have an interview. If a person isn't adequate, it doesn't make sense to teach him yoga. If a person has a mental disorder, he is prohibited to do yoga. Therefore, we have no exams assessing the flexibility of people's body. I believe that flexibility isn't a priority at all. If a well-known teacher massively promotes yoga, a lot of people concentrate on him, and he has a lot of students, his body will lose all his stretching. Didn't you understand it? As he exchanges the energy with his students, his body will get all the problems of those people who will come to him, but stretching is lost. Well, if you don't believe me, the teachers who have noticed that after having a yoga class, you have lost your stretching, raise your hands, please. You see, they have noticed it. Perhaps this is true, not just my own point of view. Is the same thing with traumas? What? If a teacher has many yoga classes, it may lead to trauma. Yes, you are right. If a person conducts classes from morning till night, it wouldn't end well, and trauma is the best thing that he can get. I mean physical trauma. And such a person often begins to behave like a star or something else. So they begin to suffer from mental problems and behave inadequately. Of course, a person should have some nerves, so he has got a certain limit. For example, there are 3 yoga teachers who teach 3 years, 5 and 10 years respectively. They have different potential of giving classes. For a young yoga teacher who has already been teaching for 3 years and has to make his living, the norm is, let's say, 8 classes a week. This is the maximum. Ideally, it's 3 classes. A person who has already been teaching for 5 years will be able to withstand, let's say, 10 classes easily. He will feel well and will transform the energy comfortably. For a more advanced teacher, the norm can be even more. But in fact, there's a reverse situation. Beginners usually take more classes in order to make their living. The older and the more famous the teacher, the less interesting making money is for him. It's not quite correct, but he has everything in harmony in his life. So he doesn't have to give classes in order to earn money. Then he begins to dose his classes not to lose his level of practice and at the same time to attract some problems that he will experience and transform. Please mind you, it's not bad. Probably you think, how is it that a yoga teacher loses his stretching? It's very good, because it's just a message from the past, and he needs to experience it and to transform it. If he doesn't transform it, he will not evolve and grow. Everyone has heard it. The only question is how he will hog the blanket of problems. And if he doses it excessively, surely he will have problems. It may be injurious on something else. Of course, you shouldn't do it. But in the case when a yoga teacher passes through himself only the problems that he has enough potential to transform, this is very positive and wonderful. So both the yoga teacher and people who come to him benefit of it. So there's a variety of different trends, schools, concepts that you can put into yourself. If you put it into yourself without thinking, there's a chance that all of it will ferment so that you will lose the path of development. Unfortunately, I have come across such examples. And if you are really trying to develop, I advise you to become yoga teachers and educate people. Perhaps you think that I advertise our yoga teachers training course. No problem, you can get in other schools certificates. Just begin this path. The guys and I disseminate a lot of information that you will never find in other schools. In what schools can you find any information about the law of karma, reincarnation, and how the energies affect person. So, you can study in another school, you can get a completely different certificate, but if you listen to what we say, analyze it, and find the proof in the scriptures, no problem, you'll be an adequate teacher. If at least one person on the planet thanked you for that you have made his or her life better, believe me, your life would be worth living. And if there will be a lot of such people around you, believe me, this is very valuable and estimable.